All right, so what happens next at running back becomes a key question. And it was reported yesterday that the expectation is that James Conner, the running back in Arizona who got hurt last year, is a probable cap casualty and very well could be released here soon, or told he's going to be released. James Conner's best years came with Drew Petzing. And Drew Petzing is now in Detroit. It's a risk because he's an injured running back. He's 31 years old. If you look at it in the context of, no, he's not as good as David Montgomery, but does the price and production make sense? You don't want to sink more money into the running back position, given that it's going to be an increased workload most likely for Jahmyr Gibbs, and money needs to be allocated to areas of the team that need it more: center, defensive tackle, edge rusher, safety, and that those might be higher priced ticket items in free agency. I'm not like 100% convinced that Conner is coming to Detroit or should come to Detroit because, foot injury and age, but he would fit the bill if healthy as a tough, hard-nosed running back that can get short yardage gains for you and isn't expected to be a big ticket item or an RB1 anywhere else at this point in his career.
I mean, if I'm going to go after him, he's going to have to come in on the cheap, because I feel like at this point, it's almost like a dime a dozen. The guys like this. The caller mentioned like 4 of them yesterday. They were all very similar. And, for someone who's going to be 31 in May, like you point out, it's not that appetizing coming off an injury. Sure, he had a couple of 1,000-yard rushing seasons with Arizona in 23 and 24. Those are good seasons, but those are also in the past in the rearview mirror at this point, and that's when he was RB1. He's not RB. He wouldn't be RB1 here. So does he even want to take on a role that had David Montgomery saying no thanks?
I'm not sure he has that choice. And what I mean by that is, who's going to make James Conner RB1?
Well, if you were James Conner's agent,
yes,
I would be saying this. Look, here's my guy who had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons where he averaged 5 yards a carry and 4.6 a carry. He had 15 touchdowns during those 2 years. And in the first of those 2 years, he only played 13 games. So look what you're getting. You're getting a guy who can still get it done. And I don't – look, I'm not going on every team in the NFL to figure out who needs an RB1, but there are plenty of teams out there that like to split the carries in a way that's going to be more equitable than what the Lions will be doing with Jahmyr Gibbs. So I think there'd be better situations for him to go to, particularly with, how you'll know more in a week once free agency starts and people start to go where they're going to go. You'll still see some holes.
Well, the one thing that Detroit does have is they have Drew Petzing, and Drew Petzing can talk on Conner's behalf and can perhaps, be somebody that, communicates with Conner's camp. Look, I know how to use you. I know how to get the most out of you. Come here, prove it deal, 1-year deal, win a Super Bowl, and then go try again. Now, if somebody's going to pay him, then so be it. I look down the list of RB1s around the league, and I'm not sure who he displaces. I don't know what Scadabo's injury is, how much that holds him back.
It would make sense saying getting the most out of him if the Lions didn't have an RB1, but they do. So you're not going to get the most out of him. I mean, getting the most out of him was giving him 200 carries.
Well, I mean, when he's in there, they know how to use him. That's what I mean. But Ken, you have any thoughts on this?
James Conner, you could do worse than James Conner, but I also think you could do better than James Conner. I think James Conner's days actually in the NFL are coming to an end pretty quickly here. Last year, he was injured most of the season, and I think it's only going to get worse for him. But if you play behind a guy like Gibbs, I think you can get the best out of him, because I think he's a guy he's a pro. He's a true pro in this league. He knows if he were to come here, he obviously knows, anyone that comes here knows that Gibbs is going to be the main guy, so your carry is going to be limited. My issue with Conner, though, is his ceiling is very low. I don't know what more you can get, than if you went with a younger back. He's on the wrong side of 30. If you went with a Tyson Algier or, I'm just throwing that name out. The guys that are younger that have higher ceilings, I think you'd be better off. I think it's going to be hard to find someone as good as David Montgomery. I think that's how great he was here for the Lions and his role. But to replace him, I don't think it's going to be that difficult because I think you're going to give Gibbs way more carries. And we're hoping the offensive line is going to get upgraded this offseason, right?
Yes.
So
there are better backs available. Don't get me wrong. Did you see what Tyson Algier wanted from Atlanta?
Tyler
Algier. My apologies. Wanted from Atlanta. He wanted 3 years, $22 million. Like that's he's instantly priced out on Detroit if that's a baseline offer that he's looking for. So I'm not saying that James Conner's perfect. I'm saying James Conner fits the profile of saving money in the backfield and has a familiarity with the offensive coordinator at the right cost. Now, if he wants more money, then so be it. Then go somewhere else. The other one is that Aaron Jones has been told he'd be released by the Vikings. Now, we talk about supply and demand. That adds to the supply of running backs and maybe knocks somebody else down the totem pole of possible backs. I mean, I at this point in his career, I don't know what Aaron Jones is expecting to get on the open market, but it's probably more than, I would guess it's more than what Detroit wants to pay.
Well, he's 6 months older.
Yep.
And has just a little bit more wear on the tread. He's got about 200 more carries, or maybe 100 more carries than Conner. But he's also a guy who's never averaged less than 4.2 a carry.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones has been a really steady, good running back in this league. And at times he's had many seasons where he's had less than 200 carries. I'd actually be more excited about Aaron Jones than I would James Conner.
Yeah, again, it comes down to price, right?
But then again, it comes down to price, and it comes down to what do you want the running back to do? Who's the best pass blocker?
Right.
Might be the most important thing of all for RB2 on this team.
At this point, Aaron Jones has not been released, so he doesn't have a projected total. The Tyler Algier number, he mentioned I mentioned the 3 years, $22 million. Spot Track has him at 5.6, and again, I don't think the Lions want to spend even that much on RB2.
Yeah, the bad news about losing Montgomery is you lose Monty, of course, but the good news is you're not trying to replace David Montgomery exactly. You don't need a guy 158 carries, 700 yards, because this is Gibbs' show now. And so I think you can't rule out the fact they might draft a running back late. And, do you guys want a rookie or someone behind Gibbs, or do you want a veteran? Whatever it is, it's going to be cost efficient. I'll tell you that much, right? But the show is Jahmyr Gibbs' show. So I think the second back, you're not looking for next Montgomery. You're just looking for a guy, change of pace, third down back, pass pro, things like that.
I might disagree with that because I think the 150 carries is exactly what they want out of the second running back. I don't think they want to give Gibbs too many more carries and touches than what he already has. It might be a little bit more, but not much more. I think the way they were able to split it up last year, maybe even by their own account, was they wanted a little bit more for Montgomery because they said that a couple times during the season. Well, we got to get him more involved, and they just didn't because the offensive line wasn't good enough to sustain drives. They weren't winning enough games late where you can hand the ball off and they get their carries that way either. But I mean, if you were the Lions, are you going to change how you use Gibbs?
I think they might, yeah. I think they might give him more.
I think when they pay him, it's going to be like we have to justify why we're paying you. You're a centerpiece of our offense.
But don't you justify that by saying with the last 2 years, what we've done with him is exactly how we want to use him? That's why we're paying him this? Not because we're going to throw more on his plate.
I think they're going to use him more.
I think they just keep.
I think it's I
keep
think
feeding
it's
Jahmyr.
very similar to the way it is.
Feeding Jahmyr. 248-539-9797. Okay. Straight ahead. Look, last year, the Red Wings, maybe it was 2 years ago, was when they really took the gas pipe right before the trade deadline, and Yzerman didn't make a move and basically said as much that, the team's play didn't justify it. Then last year, they didn't play well in March. This year, I don't want to overstate how big that win was yesterday, but when you're losing at Nashville and come back and win a game on trade deadline week, I'll put it in the category as a reasonably important win as far as what Yzerman's going to do next. I don't want to overstate it, but I don't want to discount it either. And they got another game Wednesday. I'd like to see them win to just push the GM a little bit, little nudge. Team is the team giving him a little nudge towards pulling the trigger. Many people expect him to make a move. We will get to some Red Wings talk at 10:31 on 97.1.